Good morning, Year 5s. I hope you're ready for your reading lesson today. I was really impressed by many of you who sent your work in via Teams yesterday, and it was lovely to see your answers. So for those of you who have yet to send some reading in, please make sure that you are submitting your reading so that we can see how you're doing at home. Right, we're going to carry on reading Stig of the Dump, and we're going to read the next few pages. So again, you are welcome to mute me and then pause your video and then read the pages yourself, or you can follow with me. Right, so I'm just going to read from the previous page so that it makes sense where we are heading. So it said, nobody was quite sure what happened to the hounds or the fox, but it, and now you can start following with me, had been a good run. Lou, after directing quite a few lost people, got back to her grandmother's house as the evening was beginning to close in. Barney had got back only a little earlier. They both needed baths and they were both very hungry by the time they sat down to tea in front of a blazing log fire. Well, said Grandmother, so you went off hunting after all, Barney? Oh, not really hunting like me, said Lou scornfully. Well, no, said Barney, I went with Stig, see, and he was only interested in hunting squirrels and pigeons and pheasants, really. That's not hunting, said Lou. In England, it's only hunting if it's foxes or stags. Well, Stig doesn't hunt foxes because they taste nasty, so we let the fox go, but it was so near I could touch it. Lou's eyes and mouth were round with disbelief. It was Lou, really, and then Stig bit the dog and started hunting the horses. It was jolly funny, Barney chuckled, but I thought I'd better come home. Lou looked at Barney very hard, but for once she didn't say anything. Right, I'm going to read chapter 5 now. Just move myself away. Why don't you go out and get some fresh air, Barney dear? Asked Grandmother. Barney stood and looked out of the window. Doesn't look very fresh to me, he grunted. The yellow fog hung over the trees outside. The smoke from the back kitchen chimney stirred itself into it, and there seemed to be a smell of distant cement works. Never mind, dear, it's better than stuffing indoors all day. All right, Granny, I'll go out. After about 20 minutes, he had found his jersey mixed up with his bedclothes, one outdoor shoe under the bed and the other one under the chest in the hall. He wandered out into the garden. It was neither warm nor cold, and there was no wind at all. He made for the chalk pit, whistling and with his hands in his pockets. As he came near the edge of the pit, he stopped whistling and stood still. There were voices coming from the bottom of the pit. His pit. Well, perhaps it wasn't his pit. It didn't even belong to Grandfather, or did it? Perhaps holes in the ground didn't belong to anybody. All the same, he was quite annoyed that other people should be poking around down the pit. He went cautiously to the end and peeped over. Down there among the tin cans and other rubbish were three boys of about his own age or older, dressed in jerseys and trousers that were grubbier and more tattered than his own, and grey tennis shoes with holes in the toes. They all had long, rather greasy hair. Barney recognized them. They were the Snoggett boys, part of the large family that lived in an old house with tarred weather boards and were always getting into trouble. At least that was what the grown-ups said. But then who didn't get into trouble? The Snoggets seemed to be building some sort of shack for themselves out of dead branches and old sheets of corrugated iron, with lots of horseplay of cries of, no, not that way, clever. Like this, see? Barney crawled to a place where a twisted tree trunk grew from the very edge of the cliff, hid himself behind it, broke off a handy-sized clod of clay and roots from the cliff edge, and hurled it at the roof of the shack. It curved through the air towards the target, but missed and landed almost noisily on a mossy lodge. Barney chose himself another clod and threw it. This time it struck the bottom of an upturned pail and exploded like a little bomb, scattering bits of clay over one of the Snoggets. Chucking dirt, cried the first Snogget suspiciously. I never, said another Snogget. Must have been him, he added, pointing to the third and youngest. Leave off, will ya? Said the first Snogget, or I'll do your see. I never done nothing, protested the youngest Snogget. Oh, you didn't ya? Said the first. No, I never. Well, don't you do it again, that's all. At the top of the cliff, Barney, the cause of the trouble, chuckled to himself and broke off another clod. This time his aim was true, and the clod landed fair and square on the sheet of iron with the most satisfying clang. Three Snogget heads popped out at once like ferrets out of a rabbit hole. I told you someone was chucking dirt, said the first Nugget. And I told you it wasn't me, said the youngest. They looked round, scowling at the floor of the pit. All right, it's no use getting. We can see ya, called the oldest Nugget. Barney hugged himself in silence behind his tree trunk. He knew this was just bluff. They hadn't even looked in his direction. It's old Albert, I bet, said the middle-sized Nugget. He's been and he followed us. All right. Okay, so we're going to carry on with our inference skill, okay, and giving evidence. Now, I was really, really impressed with all of you yesterday providing evidence, and it was really clear to me that you've been using your common sense, you've been reading around the context of the word, you've been using your own situations and your own understanding in order to support your evidence, which was wonderful, wonderful to see. And I want to encourage you all to continue to do that today. So for those of you who have Teams, and hopefully now many of you have been able to log on to Teams and to find the work, you're going to go and select the reading channel, and you're going to see that there is an assignment for you. So there are 3 questions which are on over here based on a little text. So you're going to read the text, and then you are going to answer the question with evidence. Now, we have highlighted the keywords for you already, and remember those keywords are very important because, for example, in the first question, it says, how does Tom feel in this paragraph? Your answer needs to be a feeling. So remember, we spoke about that point plus the evidence. So you're going to give me the point, which is the answer. So how is he feeling? So you've got to describe a feeling. Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he scared? Is he nervous? Is he anxious? And what evidence? So straight from the text, because it says, and what does it say in the text? Take it out and write it in as your evidence to support your answer. Okay, so you are going to answer just those 3 questions, and on Teams underneath you will see that there are 3 numbers for you to answer. So you can type in the answers and onto the sheet, and then you can send it to us. All right, and then we can have a look at your answers. So you can do that. For those children who are still struggling to get onto Teams or can't access Teams because your device does not allow you to, you can then give this a go and pause the video now and try and answer these questions. And then at the end, there are the answers. All right, so have a go now at trying to answer these questions, and then send your work to year5@thepalmeracademy.com so that we can see your work. Now, I'm actually not going to give you the answers because then all you'll do is just copy them down. So I'm going to leave the answers. So I'd like you to send me your answers or submit your answers on Teams, and then we can have a look at your 3 questions. So your 3 answers. So well done, guys. That is your reading for today. Really give this a go. Not many of you have been handing in your reading. I can see that you've watched the video, but you haven't handed anything in. So if you're having troubles with Teams, let us know. Send us an email to year5@palmeracademy.com email address, and we can try and figure it out for you. And please start submitting some of your reading, because as I can see, lots of you are watching the video, lots of you are opening up the work, but not many of you are doing it. And those children who are doing it, they're really going to do well in their reading when they come back to school. So good luck, and hopefully you do really well with your reading today.